Japanese know how to do scary, I'll give them that. So much so that I remember reading some of these stories from when I was younger. Hello everyone and welcome back to our channel. I'm your host Emily, and today we'll be counting down our list of the top 10 dark Japanese bedtime stories you should never read. So if you're watching this and it's nighttime, all I can say is good luck and maybe turn on a light. Number 10. Old Mountain Woman. This story goes, at the base of a large mountain lived a family with 3 sons. One day the mother tells her son she must go away for a short while and that they must keep the door closed no matter who comes knocking. It was known to everyone in the area that a man-eating ogre woman lived in the dense forest near the mountain's peak. If she knows that the boys are home alone, she will come knocking. That night there comes a knock at the door. When the oldest son reaches the door, he asks who's there. The ragged voice of a woman says, "I'm your neighbor and I desperately need help." The oldest son refuses to open the door, believing it to be the ogre woman in disguise. The next night there comes another knock at the door when the youngest son asked who's there. A silky, soft woman's voice answers, "I'm a friend of your mother's here to deliver a message." "Show me your hand," says the youngest son, and through the cracked door the son sees a withered hand with long fingers covered in coarse hair. He refuses to answer the door, and on the third night there is one more knock at the door. The middle son asks, "Who's there?" The voice of a woman answers, "It's your mother, I have come home." When the middle son asks to see her hand, he sees through the crack only a soft, delicate white hand. Satisfied, he opens the door. And there, filling the doorframe, is the ogre woman. She reaches out and snatches the middle son, devouring him quickly. The 2 remaining sons flee the house and gather up armfuls of stones before climbing a nearby tree. When the ogre chases them and makes it halfway up the tree, the boys rain down stones on her head. The ogre loses her balance and crashes to the ground, dying. Now this sounds like a warning to make sure your children don't open the door for strangers, and I can get behind that, but why would the middle child do that? It's always the middle child. Number 9. The Dream School. We've all had that nightmare about school, but if you remember the story I'm about to tell for more than a week, you might find yourself stuck in it forever. And I'm sorry. The story goes that a boy named Kay was having a dream about a strange school. He was walking through the school at night when everything was dark and empty. He heard footsteps echoing through the halls, and none of the doors or windows would open. The hallways were an endless loop that always brought him back to the same spot no matter which direction he went. As he passed the music room after wandering for a while, he started to hear the ticking of a clock, king kong, king kong. He heard the sound of heavy footsteps chasing him, and he then found a key in the teacher's lounge that had the number 108 on it. When he opened the door to room 108, he saw a horrifying scene. A creature made from the limbs, torsos, and heads of students was hobbling around in a gruesome dance. Kay was trapped in the dream, and he still wanders that haunted school in his mind. So sorry for the nightmares you're going to get later tonight, but hey, I warned you. Number 8. Red Room Curse. This Japanese internet legend is about a pop-up window showing on the computer screen and announcing the impending death of the person who sees it. The pop-up asks, "Do you like the red room?" Now, even if you close the window, it will keep coming up. Once asked, the unfortunate internet user will die, with the room which they are in found dripping in their blood, hence the name Red Room. It started as a simple if unsettling flash animation, but the legend became infamous when it was linked to the death of a student who had their life ended by a classmate in an empty classroom. There's actually a film based on this story, as it is so well known. Number 7. The 8-foot-tall woman. The 8-foot-tall woman, also known as Hashiki Shakusama, hope I said that right, is a malefic entity that kidnaps young people in Japan. She is recognizable by her giant size, 8 feet tall, and her long black hair. She announces her arrival by making a strange noise that sounds like po po po. A young boy once had the bad luck to cross its path while playing quietly in his grandparents' garden. As he heard a mysterious sound in the distance, he noticed the gigantic figure. He rushed to his grandparents and told them what he had seen, and his grandparents turned pale and shook their heads. Their grandson was a victim of an an evil spirit. Frightened, they decided to consult a witch. The young boy had to stay locked in his room all night, holding a scroll against him, and never open his door to this woman. A little later, the boy heard the sound of po 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 again, followed by his grandfather's voice asking him to unlock the door. He understood that it was in fact the demon and kept the door closed until 7 a.m. as he had been asked, but you don't get rid of this woman so easily. Oh no. As the boy was on the road accompanied by his grandparents and looked out the window, he saw the long silhouette of the demon once again. Seems like you can never really escape her. Number 6. The Cow's Head. Now, this story is the hardest to tell because nobody actually knows what it is. Legend has it that a school teacher was taking his class on a field trip. To keep their attention on the bus, he decided to tell horror stories. And he started to tell the story of the cow's head. Allegedly discovered in the 17th century, it is said to be the scariest story ever written, and that anyone who reads it will die of fright. There are multiple accounts of this story from this era, but only in reference to its notoriety and that it is too awful to repeat. According to the legend, most of the copies were destroyed, but some fragments remain. So while recounting this story, the teacher's eyes glazed over and his students listened in horror to the unspeakable things he was saying. They screamed and cried for him to stop, but in his daze, he couldn't hear them. The teacher blacked out, and when he woke up, the school bus was in a ditch. The driver had passed out, and the students were twitching and foaming at the mouth. We'll never know just what's so terrible about it, but if anyone tries to tell you this story, stop them before it's too late. Number 5. Giant Starving Skeleton. Just the title of this scares me. The giant starving skeleton, also known as Gashadokura, again, hope I'm saying that right, is said to be made up of the bones of unburied people who have died of starvation or at war, and it's always hungry. It hides in the woods at night where it can blend in with skeletal trees and then attacks unsuspecting people passing by. According to myths, the only warning that you are being stalked by one of these giant stealthy skeletons is that intended victims will suddenly experience a ringing in their ears. Now if this happens, be sure to run out of there as fast as you can. Said to be both invisible and indestructible, the only prevention is the Shinto charm, but good luck. Number 4. The Snake Woman. The Snake Woman, aka Nuraona, is a creature with the head of a woman and the body of a snake who is said to haunt shorelines and will trap fishermen and swimmers before crushing them to death and sucking the blood from her victims with her long tongue. She lures victims in with a small bundle said to resemble a baby. If the victim offers to hold the baby, she will let them live. If they try to get rid of it, the bundle becomes incredibly heavy and they are unable to escape. In other stories, she just wants to wash her long hair in peace and will attack anyone who interrupts her, so just be forewarned. Number 3. Red Cape. If you've ever seen season 1 of the show Scream Queens, you've heard this story before, but I'm going to retell it. Red Cape, also known as Akamanto, is described as a male spirit who haunts public or school bathrooms. Akamanto is often said to haunt female bathrooms specifically, and in some versions of the legend, he is said to haunt the last stall in such bathrooms. The spirit is said to wear a flowing red cloak and mask that hides his face, and is sometimes described as being handsome and charming beneath his mask. Once seated on the toilet, his voice will ask, "Do you want red paper or blue?" If the person in the stall chooses the red option, they will be lacerated in such a manner that their dead body will be drenched in their own blood. If the individual chooses the blue option, the consequences range from that person being strangled to all the person's blood being drained from their body. Either way, you're dying, and if you need to go to the bathroom right now, I'm sorry. Number 2. Teke Teke. Teke Teke was a schoolgirl who tripped on some train tracks at a critical moment, which resulted in her getting cut in half by an oncoming train. Now, Teke Teke is a vengeful spirit who crawls around on her hands and elbows, and the dragging sound of her torso along the ground makes the taki-taki sound, which gives her her name. If an individual encounters Teke Teke at night, she will chase them and cut their body in half, mimicking her own death and disfigurement. She can also hide in places like cars and windows, where half a body would typically be seen, and once her victim comes close enough, she surprises them and reveals herself. You can only escape Teke Teke if you outrun her, but watch out, she's extremely fast regardless of her not having legs. And let me just say, this sounds absolutely horrifying. And coming in at number 1 is the Slit-Mouthed Woman. This is probably the most known story on this list and one of the scariest. The story goes the Slit-Mouthed Woman, also known as Kuchisake Onna, is a rather disturbing legend surrounding a seemingly ordinary woman wearing a surgical mask as though to protect others from catching her cold. She's most often described as having long straight black hair, pale skin, and otherwise is considered beautiful. She appears before those walking alone at night and asks, "Am I beautiful?" If they respond no, she will either end their life with her long medical scissors on the spot, or wait until nightfall and end their lives in their sleep. If they say yes, she will reveal that the corners of her mouth are slit from ear to ear, and she will then repeat her question. If the individual responds with no, she will end their life with scissors, and if they say yes hesitantly, she will cut the corners of their mouth in such a way that resembles her own disfigurement. Methods that can be used to survive an encounter with her include answering her question by describing her appearance as average, or by distracting her with money or hard candies. According to myth, she was a woman disfigured by her husband when he found out she was cheating. After he viciously cut her mouth, he asked her, "Who will think you are beautiful now?" This is a popular urban legend in Japan, and it appears in dozens of movies, manga, and anime. Well, that's all for our list of the top 10 dark Japanese bedtime stories you should never read. Which one scares you the most? The Slit-Mouthed Woman freaks me out the most, especially nowadays where people are wearing face masks. Let us know your opinions in the comments down below, and why not like and subscribe while you're down there. I'm your host Emily, and I'll see you next time. Peace.